All right, here we go. Welcome to the Go PROcast, where we invite business doers who are changing lives by sharing their stories, their strategies and tactics, and who bravely talk about their failures that actually led to their biggest successes. Now it's time to Go Pro with Jeremy Torisk. Hey, welcome everybody back to the show. Today we've got a great guest. His name is Neil D'Souza, and he is a former gangster who is now teaching people how to build organized cash syndicates. Neil is a licensed mortgage agent who specializes in private mortgage and real estate investments. A busy family man and former government employee, Neil has been in the investing world for well over a decade now, starting with income properties and now showing small and large investors alike how to be the bank and earn secured, contracted returns through private lending in up, down, and sideways real estate markets. Making money moves, and trust me, he makes money move. Neil D'Souza, welcome.
Hey, thank you, my man. Thank you so much. That was a great intro, and I love I love that hardcore music to open the show too. That was awesome. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for being here, man. I was on your show a couple of weeks ago, and that's how we met. You are up in Northern Territory, right? As far as from South Florida, and you're in Ontario, right?
Yep, I'm up here in Canada, and I kid you not, parts of not here. I'm in Southern Ontario, but a little further north. I kid you not, there was snow today.
Oh my gosh, it's too early for that. I was just in New York and the weather was absolutely perfect for me. For a
Yeah,
South Florida boy, it was dead of winter for me, but it was actually very enjoyable.
yeah. Well, I'll take as much summer as we can get until that snow comes. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then you're landlocked or house locked again for a while, but I guess you with that after the year we've had, that's the last thing you're looking forward to is a long winter indoors, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a couple of years now that we've been going through this,
Mm.
and it really was considered a privilege to be able to work from home and work in my home office, and now you really do feel locked in, and I'm really looking forward to more opportunities to travel as everything opens up more and more with every day, week, month. So
So that kind of leads into, I come into these podcasts with a little bit of information, but I just find it free flowing, questions and answers
yeah.
are much more interesting and authentic. So I want to talk about your your industry and what you do for a living full time, but also your communication and podcasts and stuff like that. How
Yeah.
would you say your business changed, and how did you kind of bend with this whole situation to make it work for you? And is
Mm.
it this time that you started the podcast, or were you into that before the all
Oh,
this kind
wow.
of shutdown stuff?
Yeah, great questions. Well, I'll say that with regards to the industry in real estate, in specifically, in for you guys, your viewers, it would probably be called hard money lending. We call it private mortgages up here, or private lending, and so been doing that for a number of years, and then along came the pandemic last year, and I'll tell you, something happened that we've never seen in obviously the history of the world, but we've never seen in the history of Canada. And that was that it caused all the courts to close up.
Mm,
Now, if you're in real estate and
right.
you're into money lending, you're into private mortgages, then the courts are an important part of the whole business model, because really, if there's ever a problem with any of the investments, you want to have the courts on your side. Well, if they're closed, what do you do, right? So,
Right.
so and we had no idea how long it would be before they reopened.
And then when they did, the backup, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so they were closed up here for almost 6 months, and during that period of time, it obviously was uncertainty everywhere. I mean, people were worried about dying from a virus, but from the economic standpoint, from the business standpoint, you're thinking you lend out money, you have no idea if we have any legal
Recourse.
recourse. So it
We
made
do
it
down
some scary
here.
times.
Go after the family.
Yeah, that's right.
The gangster
That's right.
and you guys to come
right.
out.
Well, I'll tell you, we actually had a file where a guy had a number of properties, and because he was in commercial real estate, what happened was his commercial properties went from worth over $7 million to somewhere around 3. And for us, we didn't even have the majority of the money in there. We only had about $500,000, and now going from 7 million down to 3, we're like, that money's gone. They're like, in terms of value, if no one's going to buy the property, you can't resell it. What do you do? And but as investors, you've got to be able to you got to be able to stomach it, right? You got to be able to weather it. Yeah.
Did your market come roaring back as like ours? Yeah. Yeah. So what is that property worth now?
Well, he actually that he sold one of the 4 properties for $10 million.
Oh boy. There you go.
So apparently he's in talks with Amazon for another one of the properties because they want to build a warehouse.
One of the businesses that I failed at was in 2009, my construction business, because I had basically all my eggs in that basket. And when the housing market bubble burst, all the new developments shut down and all of my crews had no work and I had nothing to do with them. And then I took a job with an electrician doing this really long job and he didn't pay. So I had, my last ditch effort. So I guess a lesson that I learned for sure is diversity, right? Diversify. Yeah. So for you, kind of sounds like the same thing when that came down, the market crashed for a while. You didn't know if it was going to come up. That was a pretty steep up climb. And so was ours this time. Yeah. But sounds like you were diverse enough to go, well, listen, I can sit on that investment. And you had the relationship, right? It wasn't him that really defaulted, it's the market. So you keep that relationship going, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was really the key, is everyone has to stay calm. You can't have the rush to try to get the money back because the value isn't there anymore. And so, everybody stayed calm. Let's figure out what's going on. And then, in the meantime, we've got money out in other places. And we did end up doing some pivoting because of the way that everything came back, because we've seen the price inflation in real estate. We've had to move money into other places as well, which we can talk about as well if you want to.
So how do you find clients? Which part of the relationship building do you put into getting new clients and meeting new people? How much of it is just kind of marketing, or compared to what we really preach is building personal relationships, non-transactional relationships, with targeting those relationships, of course. But, how does that shape your business?
Great question. That's 100% of it. Honestly, for me, it's 100%. And, you talked about going from being a gangster to creating organized crime. Cash syndicates. It really is completely about the relationship. It's 100% about for me. It's 100% about the relationship. And I had a few years back where I had to fire an investor. Like, I was like, no, we're done. Yeah. And because at the end of the day, we're going to make money together. And I don't want to spend my life with people that that I don't want to be with,
Right.
but quite frankly, right? Because I've only got this one life to live,
So many
and
hours in it.
yeah, and so I want to spend it with people that I enjoy spending it with, and so I'm careful about who I work with, and if we're on the same page,
Right.
and I literally created two rules for all my investors, and after that one individual, and they go like this. Rule number one: we're going to make money. If you're not sure if there's money in real estate, come back.
Right.
Come back when you are sure, right? I'm not into convincing anybody about that, right?
Yeah.
Number one. And number two, we're going to give back. Um,
Oh,
quite
melting
frankly,
the
right?
walls on that one.
Because if I come from the hood,
Right.
and if you don't, if you can't give back, you know, I understand the places and the in how I learned over the years, over the decades,
Yeah.
how I was learning, and there was just a huge gap of vacancy, a void of knowledge, mentorship, all of this kind of stuff. You have to give back.
Yeah, so tell me about a little bit. Steve Nudelberg, who's one of my heroes, has a show called "Tell Me Something Good," and it kind of starts off his whole show. So, why don't you tell me a little bit about your backstory, being growing up in a bad neighborhood and being that gangster, and how did that play into your personality and into how you are today as a father and a family man, a businessman? How did
Mm.
that transition happen? What was that you
Ooh,
know
yeah.
spin of mindset?
Okay, well, I'll try to give you the shortened version because we're going over decades here. But the shortened version is, I'm an immigrant, born, raised by immigrants, and but I was fairly young when I came to Canada, and my parents at that time we had to deal with racism in our neighborhood. I think we were like in our direct building we lived in. I think I was the only one of the only colored kids when we first moved in, and very quickly, you start gravitating. Oh, right next door is sort of the hood, and there's other colored kids over there,
Mm,
and so of course, where did I start hanging out? But at home, my dad's an alcoholic, and it was pretty violent and tumultuous at
yeah,
home. And
yeah.
so, as a result, I sort of learned a bit of two lives. I learned to, do not cause any trouble at home because I'm going to get it.
Hmm.
And then when you go out, as soon as I became a teenager and started filling in to the body, I started realizing that, oh, I could get respect, with a little bit of force,
Mm-hmm.
and or what I thought was respect, and
Yeah,
when
fear
really it was.
and respect are two sides of the same coin, but
That's
two
yeah,
sides. All right.
yeah, that's right. And you're right. There is that element of fear and awe is very close to one another, but I imposed fear, really enjoying it for the first time in my life,
Well,
and
it's a
so
survival tactic too when you're on
yeah.
not such great neighborhoods. You better have a little bit of that in there, or else you're going to taken advantage of.
Well, I grew up at that time in history, at that time where there were still gangs were very prevalent. I mean, we know that gangs are still prevalent in certain areas, but it was literally a time of gangs. People would associate with others of their type, and so
Hmm.
I kind of grew up in that, and so we had our own mentorship program, right? Where we're
It's a
teaching.
family. It's an extension of the family in the
That's
absence of
right.
of a real family at home.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
and
right.
I
Here is a place I was accepted. Here is a
yeah,
place that I was loved and needed.
yeah, yeah, and you had a role, right?
Yeah.
So how was the transition? Because some people end up transitioning to the Iron Bar Hotel, for the rest of their lives, or they get, 6 feet under. Very few of us get the chance to be where we are today.
Yeah.
So when you come through that role here, what was the catalyst that brought you that change?
Well, they say, but for the grace of God,
Hmm.
go I. That jail cell you know, when I looked back on it, I realized how many times I came that close to it.
Yeah.
How many times I came that close to dying, to getting a bullet, to, you know, all these
Hmm.
different things, and including to the point where I was 21 years old, and I got into a gang fight, and you know, me and a buddy of mine, we got jumped by about about 21 guys,
Wow.
and yeah, and now in those days we still use knives more than anyone used guns.
Yeah,
um
knives are worse than guns in a lot of so they say. A lot
yeah,
of cops say they'd rather get shot than stabbed.
yeah, well,
Stabbed.
it's
Knives are dirty. I mean,
they
nasty.
are, and you got to be up close too, right? So it was what can I say about that? I can say that it honestly, it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. So that
uh
beating, did that really wake you up and say,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so here's interestingly, in the middle of a fight, you've got adrenaline going, and I don't even know that I'm bleeding. And my buddy and I, we got to the hospital. I'm telling him, you know, hey, don't worry, let me talk, because of the two of us, I'm probably the better speaker. So I was like, let me talk to them, because we don't want to get into a fight just trying to get into the emergency room. So so we go in and we get in there, and I was like, and don't implicate us while we're doing this.
right.
So we get in, and they're putting them onto a gurney and taking them off, and then and one of the other guys says, oh, he's cut as well, pointing to me, and I was like,
Wow.
I'm fine. And then the nurse lifts up my shirt, and you know, my back is just ribbons.
Mm.
And so he immediately was like, this guy's worse, this guy's worse, threw me down onto a gurney, and they rushed us both into operating rooms, and
Jeez.
proceeded to find out that you know, now you're starting to calm down, and
Mm.
then I can start to feel all the pain, right? And anyways,
Yeah.
I
Reality
almost
sets
bled
in.
out on that, almost bled out on that table, and I remember thinking, "Oh, wow, okay, well, I didn't think this was my time, but all right, God, I guess this is it."
Wow. So that was the biggest. Was that the big event? And then, how do you exit from the
I was not
life?
that smart, Jeremy. I was not that smart.
You
I
stayed in
was
a while
not
longer,
that
huh?
smart. I got out. I could barely walk, and then you know, they stitched me up, everything. And then I just had to heal. But you know, we
Mm.
went looking for the guys.
Yeah.
But I'll
I
tell
bet.
you this. Here's something interesting about my story, is that I I was hurt badly and obviously almost died. But when you take on that many guys and you survive, it kept a certain amount of pride.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so
I believe that. Yeah.
my desire for revenge wasn't, it didn't take on this like, I was King Kong. You couldn't,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, King Kong's got nothing on me, right? Like
10 foot
I
tall
just
and
survived.
bulletproof.
That's right. And what that did was, then I was like, okay, I got to heal. And that time of that and my ego not being hurt, it gave me time to kind of think, Neil, you,
Yeah.
you should be dead.
Yeah.
And that really started leading to okay, well, hang on a second, maybe I need to rethink this. And you know, interestingly, a friend of mine came over to me, and about a couple weeks later, and actually invited me to church, and I was like, this is kind of curious timing.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and kind of started going, okay, I need to change my life. And
Yeah.
I took it as God's hand kind of giving me a sign that it was time to make some changes.
He'll do that. He'll do that sometimes,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. So,
And I'd love to say something about that, and because then going into, and this is how it relates to some of my business journey, especially, is that I by moving over and now starting to go to church, now I'm starting to relate to a whole different set of people. I pulled out of the gang.
Mm-hmm.
I was like pulled out of that life. I'm not living this anymore. Right. I've learned enough there. And there's obviously lots of that story I could tell, but I pulled out of that. And now I'm associating with just a whole different set of people. And the level of thinking went from the hood
Yeah.
to I would say largely middle class.
Mm-hmm.
To largely middle class thinking. And so I learned how to get a job, start a family, buy a
Did you
house,
have
and
a
how to,
mentor? Did you find a mentor in that crowd there? Someone that you
yeah,
could follow, because your dad wasn't that for you as a kid. And for me,
yeah,
my parents were my parents, and they're still kind of my kids for all intents and purposes, to this day. So if not for the mentors and people that we look into and go, wow, I like to be like
yeah,
that guy. I like to do what he is doing, or be where he is, or have what he has,
yeah,
and not the hoopty and the gold and the
yeah,
loud music, but the nice house and the career, and actually some peace. That'd be nice, right?
yeah, yeah.
Did
Well,
you have someone like that?
you know what I saw that was interesting was I saw a different dynamic when it came to that respect factor. One of the things I realized is it wasn't respect; it was fear that was there on the street. And when I saw this in this church community was here's people who genuinely admire each other, and a couple of my mentors, they legitimately had people that loved them, that
Mm,
appreciated them, and that was not something I was accustomed to.
yeah.
And so to what you were saying, absolutely, I was like, that's something that I want. And I just started learning how other people thought. I just started learning how quote unquote normal people
Normal.
started thinking.
There's no normal, but they definitely have a different path.
Yeah.
Because I tell you, I wouldn't trade my childhood for anything, because it taught me how to read people. It taught me how to
Right.
kind of feel a room, and but those people, the normal people, you know, they still have their demons. They still have their everyone does.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where do you think you learned how to be to break the cycle of the fatherhood,
Mm,
thing? Because that was a very big in my house.
yeah.
Destin, I was just, and I'm not
Yeah.
the best person, but I damn sure I think I'd be on, and want to be on a mountain somewhere as one of the best fathers, I hope.
Yeah.
Um, you know,
Yeah. That's a really interesting question. And I would say that without a doubt, there were a few men in my life that really taught me a whole different side of, well, being a man and being a father as well. And I remembered something sat with me that my dad used to say when I was a kid. He always used to say, "Why do I have to be the policeman?" Right? And that was usually the instigator right before we were going to get a beating.
oh wow,
So, or something along those lines. And I thought,
reminds
well,
me
I
of
was a
Chris
kid.
Rock joke, because you're supposed to be,
Yeah, that's
you're supposed to be the policeman,
that's right.
you
And
know.
I saw these fathers that they took on this role, not whatever you want to call a policeman or a police officer, but
And who
they
knows what he was thinking when he said that either? Who
yeah,
knows?
that's right.
You may not even know.
Yeah, I actually I should see if he even remembers that. I should try to ask that question. But because the alcohol, he does have gaps in his memory and
Hmm.
stuff like that. But one of the things that I started learning was that I actually appreciated the opportunity to teach. And so when
Yeah,
I started having kids of my own, that was the next gigantic swing for me. Is when I started having kids of my own, I started asking, what am I going to teach them? I'm fine with being the police officer.
yeah,
I'm fine with being the disciplinarian, being whatever they need.
yeah.
But I had to start asking myself that, and that's when I realized that those years of working for the government, although it was wonderful and really helped me to get into regular
Yes.
society right? It's how to have normal conversations with people, how to not escalate, how to, how to de-escalate situations, all of that stuff. It was part of my learning, right? Everyone comes from a different place and has a different, you look at some guys in their early 20s, they're already, making tons of money. It took me a decade just to learn how to be a normal
Right.
human
When you're a
being.
hammer, all you see is a nail, when you're in that
Oh
life,
my goodness. One of my mentors actually used to say that,
yeah.
you know, you have to have different tools in your tool belt. And he said, because otherwise, if you're a hammer, then every problem has to be a nail, right? And so
Yes.
he used to try to teach me to do that. So yeah, absolutely. And so then having kids was really the next impetus, because then I realized that what I was going to call from them was to be their best, to give what they have to this world.
You
And
can't
then
do
I
it
started
unless you're
asking the
walking
question.
that line, right? Yeah. That example, that's kind of what I
Yeah.
draw,
Yeah.
from, I want to be able to walk through walls because I expect them to at least
My
try.
my
There you go.
daughter made this for me.
Wow.
And just a picture of me looking down at her. And
Yeah.
you know, there are a few motivators in life.
Yeah.
There are a few things that can motivate you in life, right? Like kids. And
Yes.
that was a huge impetus for me to go,
Well, that
what can I
seeing the
do?
lens that she's seeing you through. I mean, she's
Yeah.
giving you a gift.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Absolutely.
So, what is it like to experience Neil at work now? I should ask maybe Wyatt that question, but
Yes, Wyatt, my producer. What's it like? Interestingly, I'm still two people. I'm still the, like I was that one kid at home with my family, and then another kid on the street. I'm still that. As a man, I'm still like that. I can be very low key and very low key and relaxed and isolated from the world, and then I can also be in your face and out here, right? Because it's fun. Life is fun, and so for me, I don't have much of a middle gear. I'm kind of either we're doing something or we're not doing something.
yeah,
Let's
yeah,
let's make up our mind, right?
yeah. That fence is no fun to ride.
No, no, because all that it's got is your nuts.
Yeah, that's all you
So
got. So let me ask you this. One of the things that I don't let many people go without talking about is an example, and most likely something in your professional, since you crossed over to the other side, the normal side, of a rail. You were going down a road, you were going on a path, and you hit a bump, a failure, something didn't go your way that you thought was going to change the trajectory of your path, but later you found out if it wasn't for that experience, you wouldn't be where you are now. Do you have any of those that you could share with the audience?
I've
Because that's kind of the whole crux of what I do in life.
I have got a very
Mm,
recent one from last year. And I started off by telling you that the courts closed last
mm-hmm.
year. And so when that happened, you know, I had been building this business, and I am I'm ultra conservative. And so I was like, we are not putting our money on the street unless we know which way it's going, right? And there was some shaky ground. And so the money stopped coming in. And I mean, there was still money coming in, but
Mm.
it completely changed the business model. But what it really changed was my time. All of a sudden, I had all this time, and social media. I started into a podcast, out of the response there, and in interviewing one of my mentors, Alfonso Quadra, we were talking on the podcast, and he was talking about real estate investing, and I realized, oh my goodness, what in the world? I've been doing hard money lending for a number of years, and I kind of put investing, buying properties, I'd kind of put it on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And it was in that moment when there isn't the money coming in from the regular business that I realized that I had completely dropped that ball, and
Mm.
I had put this whole other side of business
The
on
equation. Yeah.
of the equation, right? I
Yeah.
had
Yeah.
put it on the side. And so I I admitted, all right,
Yeah.
Neil, you lost that time
Yeah.
that
And
you
how
were doing.
important is time with interest and value and investing? I mean,
Yeah.
that's all of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of crawling into a ball and going, it's over, what do you do?
Oh, absolutely. Got into it and started going, all right, bring this to the forefront, and started looking at properties, started
Yeah.
at building that side, building that network, having conversations, because I've already built a lot of those relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just adding another piece to that conversation that I didn't realize I wasn't talking about.
Yeah.
I just wasn't present to it.
Well, there you go. The engagement kind of
Yeah.
went over, kind of got lopsided. And, like I said, the equation is all an algebra problem. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened to my business. And that's why it failed, because it was just everything was in that one channel.
Yeah.
But
Well, one of the strengths, as you know, one of the strengths of most entrepreneurs is that ability to throw yourself into something, right?
mhm,
And really drive. Like I want to I sort of have a mantra when people ask me about me, I'll tell them that I'm a juggernaut. And by that meaning, a juggernaut is an unstoppable force.
okay.
Some of my buddies call me the Hulk, not because I'm,
No, but
but because
it's
I
here.
let's go.
It's
Yeah, that's
between
right.
here is a big rock, and
That's right.
you know,
And I'm gonna drive through it, right? And so that makes you, I mean, obviously, that makes you, Jeremy, a juggernaut, because you and any entrepreneur will just get into it and barrel through. The the downside is that sometimes you put the head down and
yeah,
keep driving, and you're not looking anymore at the other sides, right? So
that's true. And anymore, but hopefully you learn, and
yeah,
start with the networks that you build, and the engagement that you
yeah,
keep up with the right people, like you talked about before. You might have successful people, but if they're not positive, successful people, if they're not positive, successful, caring people who
yes,
care about your success, and they're not successful, positive, caring, supportive people who are going to, be there for you, then you don't need them. You need all four of those things to be a person in your network. And if you're engaging with them, it doesn't matter what you lost, because you're not going to lose anything enough, because you're engaged with all these different people
yeah,
to go, hell, I missed it, but not by that much, because I'm engaged now, and I
yeah,
read every day. Ryan Holiday is a great guy. I read for Stoicism and meditations and stuff from Marcus Aurelius.
yeah,
And it just reminds you, don't not engage, that this is the kind of things that,
yeah.
I lost everything 12 years ago. Absolutely 100% everything,
Well,
except for
congratulations.
my kids or my health, which is a lot. Trust me, it's a whole
Yeah,
lot.
yeah,
I'm not discounting those two things, but I lost everything material in life. But it just proves that resiliency and consistency pays,
mhm,
because if you just keep going after it and you keep that smile on your face, material stuff that doesn't matter. Comes and
yeah,
goes. You miss these opportunities. I've never been engaged to the point that I am now. We talked before we came on about Roy Red. I mean, this guy's
yeah,
in California, I think. You're in Ontario. I'm in South Florida. I mean, we couldn't be more juxtaposed, different across the
yeah,
universe. However, we're such a small clique, you know, just
yeah,
watching each other go is gonna, spark that, give you that cheese by that spark, that, oh
yeah,
crap, let's look over there. Let's turn that rock
yeah,
over.
yeah.
You know,
Absolutely. And the one of the beauties, and shout out to Roy Red, is that we get to learn from one another, right? We inspire one another and get to learn. Hey, what's Jeremy doing? Oh, how's he doing? Man, like, we I tried to play this game by myself,
Mm-mm.
and you try to figure it out, and you realize that it is so much more fun when you
Yeah,
do it with other people.
that's
I
right.
mean,
And
I
you're not gonna go that far by yourself.
yeah,
And the other thing you won't do is you won't get the benefits of our failures. We won't get
yeah,
the benefits of your stumbles, which are worth, those are invaluable.
yeah,
Steve calls it R&D, right? Rip off and duplicate. Just make it yours.
absolutely,
Give the credit,
absolutely,
make it yours, move
yeah,
on,
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
well,
I have not made a dollar, uh, honestly. I have not made a dollar honestly, without other people, without having learned from other people.
yeah,
I guarantee you that, all of it. I give shouts out to one of my mentors, a lawyer, Henry Priesman, who had no business working with me years ago. Taught me real estate law, more real estate law than most people will, than
forget.
some lawyers even, and he would teach me all of these things, different mentors that all taught different parts and pieces that, quite honestly, you go, I, I don't know how else I'm here
Right. If not for
without
that.
that.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, for your audience that's listening, I guarantee you that there is no moving to the next step without that who.
Hmm.
Everyone thinks it's about the how. I guarantee you it's about the who.
Right. Yeah. And you're looking to give that information on, right? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
what we do. You get it and you give it as quickly
Yeah.
as it comes in, it's going out. Maybe not the same things, but the information that we appreciate, we're giving it out probably at 2 times the pace,
Oh,
you know, which is
at
what's
least.
opening the door of the universe to get is
Yeah.
because we're giving,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just
Absolutely.
how it works now.
Yeah. Yeah,
That,
absolutely. I love the Gary Vee talked about. I wasn't much of a person in social media previously. I didn't really. I grew up before the internet. I was like, well, I don't know
thank
what the
God.
point of this. I don't know what the point of this stuff is. Everyone's in there showcasing or something. And then I remember Gary Vee talking about the only reason you don't post is because you're afraid of judgment. Well, I'm not afraid of judgment.
Nope.
I mean, I've actually lived in the streets and
Yeah.
and duked it out. I was like, I'm not worried about that. And
Yeah,
I
you're being a
realized,
telephone tough guy isn't going to hurt as much as the 18 knife wounds in the back with 21 guys on you.
yeah, exactly. Right. So, you realize the opportunity that you have to share that knowledge that just it never made it to the hood. It never
No,
made
yeah.
it into the
You
middle
don't know who's going to
class.
see it if you don't share
Yeah.
it. And what my favorite thing Gary said is people worry about posting and creating content and all this stuff. And what I just do is I look at it because of him is document. I just document what I'm doing.
Mm,
I'm doing
yeah.
something every day. I just document it.
That's
And so I
great.
look at it that way. It takes the pressure off of creating. I'm a creative person, but
Yeah.
when I go to create content, I get a little hard on myself and a little, want to be perfect. I want to be different. Don't do that. Just put it out there. What are you doing? The right person's going to see it who needs to see it.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
why, and that's from
Yeah.
Gary. He's got it. That's the one, my biggest takeaway from him.
Interestingly, when I was first trying to just get used to posting on a regular basis, to social media, I actually, on purpose, I didn't comb, I didn't shave, I didn't wear a suit or anything nice. I was like, I'm gonna look like a bum
Yeah.
on purpose, right? And I did that just to get out any part of that voice
Mm-hmm.
that's in the back of the head that's like worried about what people think. I wanted to burn that out. And
Yeah.
so I tell people, you want to do it, that you want to get on social media, you want to share stuff with people. That's one of the things that I actually tell
Yeah.
them to do.
And then you'll learn there's ways to post things that are get people's attention. You get better at it over time if you look at how to get better. And that's what I like to do, is learn just how to get better. Right. And you're never going to get better if you just do something a few times. So do it every day.
Yeah.
Look to get better, change it up. There's just so many tricks that you got 7 days a week, pick 7 different topics and do one a week. How hard is that?
Right.
Lots of good stuff, man.
Well, I'd love to get as good as you are with social media. I mean, I'm kind of like
I'm way down.
I just can't put it out.
I'm way down there. I've got a lot of growth, so we'll grow together because I'm not that far ahead of you. I just maybe have a little more consistency on throwing crap against the wall and seeing what sticks. But there's leaps and bounds to grow. The great thing is, though, you can make those leaps and bounds very, very quickly with social.
Yeah.
Bam,
Yeah,
you get a
absolutely.
couple, you just get on a roll and you get a bunch of followers. And again, it's not the numbers, it's the quality of those followers. And that's where I'm looking to just add in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 people every day that are quality people. And that's all it's about.
Well, that I think you just hit the nail on the head. It is about quality over quantity, and so many people are, quite frankly, judging themselves because they don't
Falsely.
have those. Because they don't have the numbers, and I tell my kids this, Jeremy, and I hope I hope your viewers can take this to heart. Is judgment is the killer of dreams. I tell my kids it's the killer of dreams.
Yeah.
You can't waste that time on that judgment. You got to just do and leave it to someone else to judge.
Making the walls melt, catching them on fire with that one. But tell us where to catch you. I've got a couple of things up here that I've been kind of throwing up on your LinkedIn, your email, but where can we see you? Catch the podcast. What's the name of that? It's best name ever, by the way.
It's called the Leadership to Wealth podcast. You can find us in all sorts of places for the audio. You can find the video obviously on YouTube, the Leadership to Wealth podcast. You can also go to leadershiptowealth.com and find us there. And I really do ask people to go to YouTube, go subscribe. It's important because I really want, like we did your interview, and it's important that we get this knowledge out there. I don't even monetize it, right? It's not about that. No. It's about getting this knowledge and the difference that it can make, right? Coming from the streets, I know the difference that a little bit of knowledge can make. And, if we've got time, I can tell you a little bit about that story in a little bit, but just a little bit of knowledge and wisdom can really make a huge difference. And so
go with that story. Go ahead with it. We got
we got a few minutes. Okay, here we go. So I was in the gang, but I also had a part-time job. I was working at a restaurant, and while I was a Denny's restaurant, I was working at a Denny's restaurant, and now while I'm meeting this guy. He's supposed to show up, and he's bringing some guns, and because I'm on the street, and he's bringing some guns because I'm gonna make money. Yeah. I'm gonna make money. We're gonna figure it out. And who's got the money? Well, it's these guys that are the drug dealers. So, okay, we're gonna have to deal with them, and which what dealing with them means, right? And I say it
Canada,
with a smile.
I would imagine it's hello, let me take those. Thank you. No?
Yes, we say please and thank you. Yeah, that's right. We say excuse me if we almost bump, but
sorry,
in the hood.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, come on. Give it over,
Poser.
Yeah, so needless to say, that was just the level of thinking that I had at the time. It just made sense. If I want to make money, this is, again, you got to remember the level of my mentors at that point in time, right? And this has made sense. So this guy's coming to drop off the guns. He doesn't show. And so I'm talking to the boys, and I'm like, we're going to have to deal with him. He's the one bringing the guns. We're going to deal with him. But that night I go do my shift at the Denny's restaurant. And that night a guy comes in and he says, he's there with some guys and they're talking, and he goes, "Hey, I got a business opportunity that I'd love to talk to you about. You seem like a really, interesting character. I'd like to talk more and see if there's some opportunities for us to work together." And I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And I called the boys that night and I was like, "Guys, okay, look, we still got to find these guys, but in the meantime, I've got a potential legal business opportunity. Let me see. Let me look into it." And it was a multi-level marketing, network marketing opportunity. But honestly, Jeremy, it was the first legitimate opportunity that I had, and I started trying to learn.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that helped me learn about people was getting into a network marketing business. And something interesting about that, I met that guy that was supposed to show up 2 years later. I met him 4 months after almost dying.
Wow.
In the knife fight. And I ran into him on the street and I was like,
"Did you tell him how close?"
I said,
"His life almost changed."
"Where have you been?"
Yeah.
I was like, I'm telling him we're having this quick conversation, like, "Hey, we haven't seen one another. What's going on? How did this, hey, what happened to you, by the way? You didn't show." I got no animosity at that point in time, right?
Sure.
But I was like, what happened to you? He said, "On my way to come meet you, I got pulled over by the cops."
And he thought it was bad
trunk.
Saved his life.
He spent 2 years in prison. I met him shortly after he got out, walking down that street, and we ran into one another. So
he probably saved your life too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I wouldn't have showed up. I wouldn't have gone to work that night.
I mean,
just
much. Having to put yourself in those positions mentally, that could change you.
Yeah. Yeah. That friend, that guy from the table that invited me, he was the one that actually invited me to church those years later. It's
about where, that's where the stoicism is. And these things open up to you and they're supposed to happen. You just don't realize it. But when you do realize it, and then bad things happen, quote, air quotes, bad things happen. They're not bad. They're just things. And you go, it's supposed to happen. This car is supposed to smack my front end and I'm not supposed to be, wherever I was going to think I needed to be right now. There's a reason for this happened. And that person might change your life. You just don't know.
Kevin Hart actually was in an interview and he was saying that he said, it's kind of like if you play, what's that, blackjack, he's like, you can lose, you can go run bad for a long time, but at some point you're gonna catch your run, and when you catch it, make your money, get out of there.
Right.
Like when the opportunity comes, take it.
And recognize it and then exit. I start everything with the end in mind, like we talked about right before. What's the exit strategy?
Absolutely. And that, if we talk about investing, absolutely,
reverse engineering. That's what's key.
You never put your money into anything unless you know how you're going to get it out.
That's right. Yeah, and it might not work out that way, but at least you're going in with your eyes wide open.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, my friend. I think we said it all.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. And we can hold on for a few minutes. Let me get out of here and tell everybody we appreciate you watching the Go PROcast. Thank Neil D'Souza for coming on. Leadership to Wealth podcast. Check it out. Check me out at jeremytorisk.com. Remember, my last name is Torisk. And my blood type is B positive. So how could I go wrong? All right, my friend.
Yeah, I love it.